Warning, the following podcast may contain graphic content, language, sexual nature that some may find offensive. Listening discretion is advised. Hey everybody, it's Tommy Canelli and welcome back to Before the Lights podcast, the show that tells you how they made their mark. She's an author and a victim of sexual assault and almost was murdered. She is now out to heal and inspire others with her story. Please welcome to the show, Ashely Michelle. Ashely, welcome to Before the Lights.
Thank you so much, Tommy, for having me on your show to share my story.
Yes, and it is a story for sure. And listeners, as you heard in the beginning, there is a warning to the show. We're going to be talking about murder and sexual assault and rape and some of these things. So if that is not for you, this is the time to hit stop or fast forward past this episode. Ashely, start here. Tell me about your life before this tragic day happened.
So before this tragic day, I experienced a lot of trauma in my past. I no longer talk to my biological parents as they're both extremely toxic. I was slapped across the head by my biological father, telling me that I was effing stupid. Growing up, I always felt like I was never good enough. I was never enough. When my biological sister was born, it was all the attention was on her, and I just kind of got put on the back burner. My biological sister and mother would go out shopping all the time, and they would leave me behind. And then I was bullied in school on top of that. So my self-esteem, my self-confidence was totally derailed. And then I got into my first relationship in college, and that was extremely abusive. I had a knife pointed at me at one point. I was cheated on. I was shoved into a wall. It's been trauma after trauma. And when you're going through something so horrific in your life, you have to uncover every single stone. So when I went to counseling in college for my abusive relationship, I had to go back and talk about everything from past, present to future. And then I had to do that all again in 2016 when I started counseling, because that is the only way that you're going to heal from your trauma. Nobody else can save you. You have to be willing to talk about absolutely everything. Even if you don't think that it's that significant, it can have a huge influence on you in your emotions.
So you've had, to put it mildly, a very difficult life up to this point.
I wouldn't say difficult, but at the same time, I always try to tell myself that there's somebody going through worse than I am. Not to say that my trauma is any less significant, but when I see people that are on the streets that are shooting up, I don't ask myself anymore why. I ask myself, why not? I ask myself, what significant trauma did they go through to get to that point? Like when the police first sat down with me, they told me, please make us a promise. Don't turn to the streets for sex, prostitution, drugs, alcohol. And it's just so sad that that's the first thing that the police have to say to you. And that's when you know the statistics are high for people to turn to drugs. So now when I see a homeless person, I wonder truly, what is their story? What did they go through to get to the spot that they're at? And I'm so lucky and I'm so grateful because, yes, I had a difficult life, but I had so much support. I had so many positive people constantly cheering me on, where other people don't have that.
I'm going to break down this horrific day. But before I go there, tell me and my listeners, what was your relationship with your boyfriend prior to this day? How long had you known him? How long have you been dating?
I really wouldn't call it, I would call it like an on and off again kind of fling relationship. It wasn't anything serious. But it was probably 2 years, but he went out west and for a year. So we kind of talked in that time, not too much. And then when he came back from out west, he was completely different. And it's crazy because he went to school for police foundations and criminology. Like, we think that we know somebody and we think that we can trust them. And it doesn't matter what their background is. It doesn't matter what job they are. Trust can be broken so quick and so fast.
And this happened in London, Ontario, correct?
Correct.
August 27, 2016. Describe how the day started for you.
So it was actually August 28th that this event happened. But the 27th, I had to go to a Good Life party for a guy that was leaving Good Life, one of my managers that I was working for. So we talked off and on that night. Nothing seemed, insane to me or anything like that. He was actually with the deceased. They were hanging out. I talked to the deceased that night. I believe I was one of the last people to talk to him. But nothing out of the ordinary. Like, he asked me for a rent deposit because he was going to get a new place. And I said, no. And he wanted to live with another girl. And I was like, no. So I kind of put my foot down on that. And then he called me at 5:30 the next day. So August 28th, he called me. He asked me to come to the deceased's apartment. I didn't really think anything of it because we met at all kinds of different times.
You didn't know that he had committed murder at this point?
No.
Did he sound like he was on drugs or drunk for the night before or drunk that morning? Or did he sound sane to you?
He sounded like his typical self, like
okay.
Didn't sound stressed, didn't sound like nothing out of the ordinary. So then I got to the apartment and I waited 40 minutes in the lobby. And I was like, he's called me here and he's taking so long. And then another individual showed up and I told that individual to go home because he was working a night shift. And so I waited in the lobby, got upstairs. One of the elevators were actually broken. This was on the 18th floor that this occurred on. And so when he finally met me down, first we went outside for a bit and we talked and sent that other individual away. But then I could see bruising on his knuckles and I could see that his toe was cut. And I said, what happened? And he said, some glass and stuff. And I was I really didn't think anything severe of it. And so we went up to the apartments and the apartment was it was covered in blood.
When you walked in, Ashely, explain to my listeners, you say the apartment was covered in blood. Describe to me the first thing you saw, the thoughts that went through your head right away when you saw all this.
That I was the next one to be murdered. I kept asking where the deceased was. He locked all the doors behind me. So there was 2 to 3 locks on that door. And then he told me I wasn't going anywhere. He grabbed my phone from my hands. And I kept saying, where's Nathan? Where's Nathan? And then he took me over to where the deceased was lying in a bathtub covered in blood. And he told me that he was already going away for 1 count of murder. So why not make it 2?
How did he kill Nathan?
He beat him to death with his bare hands. And Nathan, we found out at the trial that he was actually alive for 2 to 3 hours. And he watched him. And then at the trial, he wanted to plead manslaughter and say that it was an accident. But we both know that everybody knows that an accident is it's a car accident. Beating someone with your bare hands, that's not an accident.
No.
That's intent. And he had no problem taking a naked selfie of himself covered in blood because he was like, well, I've never seen anything like this. It was like a movie. That's what he said on trial when he took the stand. It was horrific. But I knew from watching crime shows that I had to stay cool, calm, and collected. Because the moment that I showed fear, it was going to get me killed. So I kept like complimenting him, as messed up as that sounds, being like, you have your whole life ahead of you. You know, you had so many people like rooting for you. You're a great person, and just trying to keep the situation as calm as I could. And he kept asking me to go to the balcony. And I knew, like, we're on 18 stories. He's just going to push me off the balcony and say it was an accident. So I knew that that was not an option. And he wanted me to clean up the blood. Like, that's all that he kept talking about. That's all that he wanted. And I said, no. I said, even if you were to clean up all this blood right now, all the police have to do is shine a light. Like, you know this from, you took this in school. And that wasn't good enough for him. And then that's when he strangled me. He told me to shut the F up at one point. And then he was like, I'm going away for a long time. And then kept pulling down my pants, I don't know, like 2-3 times, and kept telling me he was going away for a long time. So, you know, and I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, it's not an option. And then he got madder, and then he ended up going to the bathroom. And I ended up running down 18 because one of the elevators were broken, and I had no time to wait for an elevator. So I ran down 18 flights of stairs. And it showed in the trial that he was moments, seconds away from meeting me downstairs in the lobby. So I went to a convenience store, and the convenience store guy kind of gave me a little bit of a hard time and told me to use the payphone outside. And I was like, but I don't feel safe. The back of my shirt is covered in blood from standing at the door. So I call from the payphone outside. 2 police officers show up. They read me my rights, because that's what they have to do, because they don't know the situation. They told me I was free to leave at any time, but I was like, no, I want to give my statement. And that's when the police, first, before they even asked me anything, was like, can you please make us a promise that you won't turn to the streets? And that was the whole reason behind me writing a book, was because if I could save one person from turning to the streets, because trauma happens to 15-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and their brains aren't even processed yet.
Right.
So they think going to the streets is their solution, their way out. So I knew that this was not just an Ashely situation now. This was a worldwide epidemic. People are survivors and witnesses to crime every day. Some people, they don't make it out, and some people do. And I knew that I had to step up, and I had to provide justice. But that was a process, because in October of 2016, it was Thanksgiving, and everything just became so overwhelming that I decided to mix a bunch of pills with alcohol. And I thought, why not just take me out? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to feel this way. Everything for me, I had survivor's guilt. I felt guilty for doing things like crossing the street. I was like, why did I get out, but the deceased didn't? I lived with that and lived with that. And I was like, why couldn't I have done more? Why couldn't I, went out with Will that night, and then Nathan would still be alive? I blamed myself and blamed myself. And it was just so overwhelming.
Let me ask you a couple questions. Let's go back for a second. Did you ever find out why he beat Nathan to death? What happened there?
He said that he was drunk. He used all kinds of different excuses. I think that we'll never truly know what happens. I think only the deceased really know what happens. And then he tried to blame me for it too, and say that when I was talking to the deceased, that it was flirtatious and he got jealous, which was not the case at all. There was no flirting.
Even if it was, it's not a reason to kill somebody.
Exactly. He's taken no responsibility, no ownership, nothing. He actually wrote me a letter while he was in jail, and my Crown attorney asked me if I wanted it. And I said yes. And in that letter, he said, I hope to someday make things right. I don't know how you can ever make something like that right. Like, I absolutely 110% obviously want nothing to do with him. And I wish that he was staying behind bars for the rest of his life. But our justice system is so corrupt, and he's actually up for full eligibility in 2030. In day parole, I think in like 2028 or 29. And it's just like, why can he get out by the time he's in his 40s and he can still get married and have a life, but the deceased can't? That's where I think that there is absolutely no justice in our system.
He was found guilty, though, of second-degree murder, right?
He was, correct.
And did he plead guilty to the death threats and assaulting you?
He pled. So one of the charges was forceful confinement, and he would not plead guilty to that charge. He said that I could leave whenever I wanted, which we all know is a horrible lie. He took no responsibility, but he pled guilty to the other charges in relations to me. And then, like I said, he tried, and actually this year, he actually went for an appeal and said that he tried to argue one of the judge's charges, and he also, which was based on a technicality. And then he wanted to plead manslaughter again. And it's, if he went for another trial, and it's like, no, like, why do they even, after a certain amount of time, they shouldn't even get that opportunity to make a plea.
He was originally, though, sentenced to life in prison with no chance for parole for 14 years, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And what I don't like, too, is before the trial occurred, you get double time and a half for every day served before you go into the trial, which was counted in that 14 years, which I think is absolutely ridiculous.
So in July of 2022 was the appeal after 6 years.
Correct.
And that decision now is he could get out in 2028 to 2030, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, he needs to stay behind bars.
Make a difference with Free as a T. Did you know 1 in 5 Americans will experience a mental health challenge every year? Free as a T is giving the gift of good. For every t-shirt purchased, $5 will be donated to the Mental Health Coalition to support mental health resources for the millions of people who need them. Plus, for every purchase, 1 shirt is donated to someone in need. Free your mind and shop with a cause. Buy one, give one for $45 and learn more about us and our mission at freeasat.com or click the link in the show notes. Make a difference, 1 tea at a time. Happy tea time.
Exactly. And what else I don't get is, I really do feel like if he had the opportunity that he would 110% reoffend, because we never thought he would offend in the first place. But you know what? I think people that go to jail for something as simple as selling drugs or, robbery, I think some of those young people can change. But I think people that are sexual offenders or murderers, I don't think that they ever change. They only learn to manipulate the system. And that is exactly what he's doing now behind bars.
Did he have anger issues?
Not really. Not anything that I saw, at least. I mean, he had a rough upbringing. He was adopted, and he was never really close with his adoptive parents, but he did have a biological sister that he was adopted with. He was from Guatemala, actually.
Why do you think he did it?
I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. They were like brothers. They were inseparable. They were best friends for like 12 years, I want to say. Like, the deceased's family would have him over for dinners. They would send leftovers home. They treated him like a son. They did everything for him. And that's the part that angers me the most, is you had so many people that were in your corner that would have done anything for you. And this is how you repay that? That's what I can't understand and comprehend.
And I'm sure you've done this, but looking back, did you see warning signs that Everybody just kind of would look over because you didn't think anything like this would ever occur?
I know, because like I said, we think that we're safe because he went to school for police foundations, criminal. He worked for the city. Like, he had a good history from what I knew of him. Like, I was introduced from a mutual friend with him. And there was, other than, being a bit of a player and stuff like that, there was nothing that stood out to me that would say he's going to kill somebody.
You said you've had a lot of trauma, and you
Correct.
have PTSD, depression, anxiety,
Correct.
all very logical reasons why you would be dealing with this. But my question to you is, how are you coping with everything?
I'm coping with everything by honestly just helping other people out. I actually had somebody from the States reach out to me, and he was a witness to a homicide as well. That's what helps me. Writing blogs is what helps me. Going to the gym, working out, having a huge support network that I have, that's what helps me stay strong. And my counselor, like, she's great. I still keep in touch with her. Like, if I need an emergency session, she'll fit me in. I've just been surrounded by so many amazing individuals, and I am 100% truly grateful, because I don't think that I would be where I needed to be if it wasn't for everybody who, cheered me on, who believed in me. I had 3 amazing individuals during the trial that put their lives on pause for me and sat there and held my hand every day, took off holidays from work to sit there in that trial with me. And I will never, ever forget it. There's no repayment. I can thank them a million times and I still don't feel like it's enough. I truly believe that family is not defined by blood. Family is who you make it to be. And those people that stood by my side every day, wiped my tears, those are the people that I consider to be my family.
You wrote the book, Finding Strength Through Tragedy, a portion of the proceeds going to help survivors of crime. Do you feel like writing this book, Ashely, for you was more about a healing process than actually writing the book?
It's crazy. Yes. I actually came up with the title before I came up with any of the words in the book. Yeah, I knew that I wanted it to reflect strength. I knew I wanted it to be a healing journey, and I knew that I wanted it to be relatable to others, because I wanted to be that teaching tool, that teaching lesson for somebody else. And I wanted people to feel all the emotions that they need to feel in order to heal. And I wanted people to be like, oh yes, I understand that. I went through that. I wanted people to take a deep dive in anxiety and depression and PTSD, because it is more common than we think. I used to think that PTSD was something that only war vets got. Like, when my doctor diagnosed me and did the test with me, I was like, no, I can't have PTSD. But you can get it through any type of trauma.
Go to ashleyinspires.com. You can get your hands on the book. I'm going to ask you a couple questions in regards to maybe the book and your life and the incident. One is, do you feel like there's strength in trauma?
I do feel like there's strength in trauma, but I feel like you have to get to that point. Like, everything that I went through and endured in my life, even before 2016, I don't regret any of it. It has turned me into the person that I am now. I mean, I hate that somebody died as a result. I wish that was changed, but it has been the biggest lesson in life to me to, not that trust is something that you need to build over time. It doesn't come easy to me anymore. It's hard for me. I mean, I still have wounds. I still have bad days like everybody else. But I truly think that you do find strength through your trauma. And the strength comes from having a toolbox full of resources that you can go to when you are struggling, so you don't turn to the streets. For me, that toolbox is my support network, my counselors, the gym, those are all my resources that help me. Now, every person's going to be different and have different tools in their toolbox. Some people don't go to therapy. Some people want group therapy because they want to be able to talk to other people. Some people like the one-on-one approach. I think it all has to do with the person, but I think that nobody else is going to be your savior. You have to be your own savior. You have to be your own light at the end of the day. Nobody else can twist your arm and force you to get better, no matter what age you are. You are responsible for you, and you have to be willing to put in the work, the dedication, and go through everything that has happened in your life, because that is the only way that you're going to heal.
This may be my listeners probably going to go, wow, that's a crazy question. And it's probably going to be. But I'm curious now, listen to what you just said. Did this horrific crime teach you something?
Absolutely. It taught me that this is a worldwide epidemic, that people are going through this every single day. It opened my eyes to people on the streets, like why they do what they do, why they shoot up. I feel like I'm a lot less judgmental now. I understand. I understand trauma. I understand what it's like to have anxiety. I understand what it's like to have depression. I understand that you don't just snap out of it and it's one day better. It has opened my eyes in more ways than one. It has made me keep my circle small. It has made me realize that there are so many people out there struggling, and that by sharing my story, I can help other people. And that's what is most important to me, is being that teaching tool and, being a positive influence and that positive role model for other people. Like, I don't share this story so people can have pity on me or feel sorry for me. I want it to be relatable, and I want people to feel comfortable enough to reach out to me. I actually had somebody that I knew reach out to me that was in a domestic violent relationship, and they asked me for some resources. And I love just being able to be that support for others.
What challenges are you still encountering today?
I still struggle sometimes with the whole survivor's guilt. Like, if I did this different, if I didn't go to the party, and I know that you can't go on what ifs, but I do sometimes have to step back and be like, no matter what I did or didn't do, like, even if it didn't happen on that day, it could have happened on a different day. Maybe I could have prevented it that day, but who's to say I would have prevented it in the future? That's something that I struggle with. And, it was really hard and it was really challenging. It's gotten a little bit better, but me being here and the deceased not, I struggled with that so much. But I know that me and the deceased have one thing in common, and he was a person that wanted to make the world a better place. And I know if roles were reversed, he'd be writing a book. He'd be sitting down having this podcast with you. He was very much, that person that wanted to make a positive change and be that inspiration to other people. So him and I definitely have that in common. He helped Will as he was going through a time. He helped him land on his feet. He got him a job interview. That's the kind of person the deceased was. He was always thinking about other people and putting other people before himself.
Hopefully you're having more good days than bad days.
I mean, it depends on the season and everything too. And, anniversaries. And I have to deal with my ex for the rest of my life. And I don't even have kids with him. And so we get parole packages now, which is a challenge in itself. And when I get those parole packages, I really, sometimes I, reach out to my counselor, because it's like you're reliving that trauma all over again. When you get like the testing scores and everything. And I'm glad in a sense that, the jails wants to keep you updated on what's going on. but it is pretty traumatizing. And I'm glad that I get some of those packages before the deceased's family, so at least I can pre-warn them what's to come. But it never goes away. You know what I mean? There's anniversaries. There was last year, the appeal stuff. It's always going to be in front of you, but you have to be willing to take the steps that you need to move forward in a healthy, positive way and not let it ruin you, not let it get you down.
How have you been able to move forward? And it's okay if you don't want to answer this, in other relationships since then. Is it taken time? Have you been able to get past that and have other relationships?
It has definitely taken time. I mean, I have some moments where I do struggle to communicate, to say what's on my mind. I'm not the easiest person to be in a relationship with. I actually just currently moved in with my current boyfriend.
Cool.
Yeah. So he's actually been really good with me. He's been really patient with me. I mean, he knows everything that I've been through, everything that I've experienced. I try to be the best person that I can be for him. I know that I don't always make things easy. I do keep some things in at times because it's hard to express myself. So I'm learning slowly but surely. But it's a process, and I'm really grateful. And like I said, he's been so patient and so graceful for everything that I have gone through, currently going through. It's really nice to have that positive, uplifting support. That
is a perfect place to end this on that happy note right there. That's the spot to end this right there. So I'm going to and say thank you for coming on the show. I wish you nothing but happiness going forward. I can't tell you how terrible I feel that anybody had to go through this, and let alone for you to be able to talk about it and come on my show just to let other people know, hey, these tragic events are happening every day in our lives somewhere in the world, and don't turn a blind eye to it. You can get help. There are other avenues for you. And hopefully this message that we just put out there got to at least one person, and if not, maybe multiple people.
My book is on Amazon, and my website is currently being rebuilt. So I'm really excited to share that soon. And you can also find my YouTube channel, Ashely Inspires, as well.
Awesome. Well, have a great day and have a great rest of this 2023. It's brand new. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. And thank you for providing me with this platform to share my story.
You are welcome. Listeners, you can go check out my YouTube channel as well, called The Light, short inspirational videos to get you onto the path to have a greater you and a better life. The link will be in the show notes, as well in the show notes on how to get to Ashely's YouTube channel. And I'll put a link to her website, so when it's revamped, you'll be ready to go. And I'll put a link to the book as well. Thank you for listening to Before the Lights. I'm Tommy Canale. And until next time, everybody, I salute a chin chin.